There are a number of lifestyle changes that can support teens to manage fatigue, and I think that's a great area to explore. It's an area that occupational therapists like myself can support, as well as other allied health professionals such as physiotherapists, exercise physiologists, and psychologists. And really, I think it's an area that both the teen and their families can support. So the first one is physical activity. Physical activity has really strong evidence in terms of the research that's been done around the benefits in MS, and particularly that moderate to vigorous physical activity has been shown to be really beneficial. We know that it is positively associated with improved fatigue, with physical inactivity can really be associated with increased levels of fatigue and also feelings of lethargy. So definitely that's an area that we'd encourage all our adolescents to be prioritising and to trying to be working towards. We acknowledge that it can be hard when there's fatigue or significant fatigue that they're already experiencing, and this can be a big step to get to. And I think that's something we're having a tailored approach and working together with your healthcare team to get the right supports in place to then facilitate it is helpful. But some simple approaches where we would start is thinking about when energy levels are their highest and trying to schedule physical activity there, starting really small and gradually building up, keeping cool. We know that heat can sometimes exacerbate fatigue, but also some MS symptoms. And particularly in this adolescent group, thinking about opportunities or activities where exercise with friends or peers may occur. We know that that social connectedness and social physical activity is a real motivator and driver for adolescents and can be an effective way to increase physical activity. Emotional wellbeing is another area that is really, really important, particularly in this age group and as part of their overall care. We know that adolescents are often dealing with MS-related stresses on top of those typical teenage stresses experienced as part of adolescence. So it's definitely an area that we encourage to kind of monitor and be aware of. We know that research has shown that mood and thought patterns can exacerbate fatigue, so particularly thought patterns around fatigue being uncontrollable and, the negative impacts that come with fatigue have been shown to be thought processes that can exacerbate that cycle of fatigue in terms of feeling helpless and that there's nothing they can do to manage their symptoms. And I think the really important aspect to consider is linking in with supports early. I think there's a lot of supports that we can help connect with, whether that be psychologists or other supports like school counsellors, Headspace, MS support groups, or sort of supportive peer relationships. All of those factors can be helpful in terms of the individual's wellbeing, and I think definitely it's an area to discuss with your care team, and they will be useful in terms of guiding you around accessing some of those supports. The other factor I should comment just on in terms of the emotional wellbeing is I think normalising accessing those supports. It can be a barrier for a lot of adolescents or even a bit daunting in terms of accessing psychology support, but I think it's definitely an area where there's a lot of benefit that can come from having those supports in place. The next slide is around sleep hygiene. So sleep is a huge part of managing fatigue, and getting good habits in place, both for daytime routines as well as nighttime routines, can make a big difference. And that's what the next few slides are really going to be focusing on. So in terms of daytime, sticking to a regular wake time and sleep time is really beneficial. Having that regular time really helps in terms of the body clock, and having very irregular sleep and wake times can really confuse that internal body clock and further impact fatigue. And it's a challenge, but I do try and encourage, even on weekends, to roughly stick within sort of 30 minutes to an hour of their usual wake-up time. Sometimes where fatigue is really significant, I think adolescents can get into patterns where they'll often say, I wake up at normal time for school, so 7 o'clock weekdays, but then on weekends I sleep until midday or 1 o'clock. And having that really big discrepancy can be an area where improving it and bringing that wake time back on weekends closer to the weekday time can help in building that consistency in body clock. Spending time outdoors or in natural light is really good, particularly during daytime, to cue the body that it's daytime, it's light, and again helping with those sort of internal rhythms. Having physical activity in the day is really great. We've discussed previously there's a lot of benefits to physical activity. Other factors include avoiding caffeine, particularly in that late afternoon, evening period. Trying to use bed only for sleep, so avoiding spending prolonged periods in the day kind of lying in the bed, watching TV or doing homework in bed. We really ideally want to separate out just having the bed as a place for sleep, and that we do other activities outside of the bed. Just helps setting up that space as bed being for rest and bed being for sleep. Ideally, we want to try and avoid napping, especially after 3 p.m, because it can have flow-on effects then to nighttime sleep. Too much napping in the day can impact ability to get to sleep at night as well as ability to stay asleep. So I think that's an area to speak to your team. Definitely, there's a lot of strategies we can put in place to help with that. Sometimes napping is needed, particularly if it's following an acute event or a relapse episode or illness. There's always exceptions, but I think if it's a persistent napping that's sort of happening once they're better, that would be something to raise with the team around looking at, are there other strategies we can put in place to help with that? And I have said if in instances where it's not able to be avoided, having a nap, then we try and suggest limiting it to less than 60 minutes and ideally napping before 3 p.m. to avoid it impacting nighttime sleep. But as I said, there are always exceptions, so it's definitely a good concern to raise with your team and get their input on. Some tips for evening sleep. So as we discussed on the previous slide, having a consistent bedtime as well as bedtime routine can be really helpful. The bedtime routine is helpful in terms of cueing the body in that it's almost time for sleep and to start getting ready. So it might look like something like I have dinner, finish off my homework, then I have a shower, I brush my teeth, wash my face, I read a book for a short period, and then lights out and it's sleep. I think it's good practice to try and start that bedtime routine within an appropriate period before bed. So often we would encourage teens to set an alarm to remind them it's time to start that bedtime routine and finish what they were doing beforehand. We encourage avoiding device use 30 to 60 minutes before sleep, just so it's not impacting that sleep quality and ability to get to sleep. Ensuring the bedroom is cool, dark and quiet is the ideal environment for sleep. We often say keeping it almost cave-like, so that they've got that coolness, it's dark, it's quiet. And thinking about dimming light levels prior to sleep can help, again, in preparing the body that it's getting time to slow down, getting time to sleep. Sometimes there's adolescents that have a lot of thoughts that can happen or come up at the end of the day as they're getting ready for sleep. They might have worries or that long to-do list that's running through their mind. So having a notepad next to the bed or somewhere to write down any concerns before bed can be helpful. If they're not asleep within about 20 to 30 minutes, rather than staying in bed tossing and turning and to keep going, I would encourage getting up, doing a quiet or relaxing activity for a period. So it might be getting a warm drink, it might be listening to some relaxing music, reading a bit more of their book, and then going back and trying again once they're feeling sleepy. That's really around, we don't want them tossing and turning and associating bed with not sleeping and the frustration that comes with that. It's better to get up, relax, and then try again. And for the same reasons, we try and avoid clock watching, just not having a clock where they can see it. That can, really increase anxiety around sleep in terms of the stress that comes with I can't get to sleep and I'm not going to sleep and it's 10 o'clock now it's 10:30, I'm going to be so tired tomorrow, and these sorts of thought patterns that come along with it. So that's just, if they're having trouble getting to sleep, they're better off getting up rather than staying in bed and watching that clock and tossing and turning. If there's persistent sleep difficulties, that's definitely something we'd encourage you to speak with your treating team, your neurologist, and any other members involved in your child's care. Consider completing a sleep diary can be helpful in terms of having information to then take back to the team and show them sort of what's going on, but that's something they can guide you with if it's needed. The last slide's just to touch on diet. So just some key points is thinking about trying to have a healthy, balanced diet, avoid skipping meals. Skipping breakfast is a common one that we see, and really breakfast is setting them up for the day. So If you're not having breakfast, it's not starting the day, with fueling the body to have energy for all of the things they need to do, like school and all of that thinking and physical energy requirements that occur once you're at school. Smaller, more frequent meals might help to provide regular energy boosts. Staying hydrated is really important, keeping up fluids, water as much as possible. Trying to avoid excess caffeine, sugary drinks and snacks. And really, I'd encourage considering a dietitian review if you feel like further support's needed in this area, to look in more depth at diet and ways to kind of support energy and sustenance throughout the day. So in summary, key takeaways are that fatigue can significantly impact adolescents' quality of life and participation in their activities of daily living. But there are many strategies that can help to manage fatigue. And I'd really encourage linking in early with your tertiary hospital team or care team for support around this. I think particularly neurologists and allied health supports are a great starting point in terms of further looking at fatigue and really tailoring the management plan to that specific individual's needs. Thank you. I've just got references there.